Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to Friday morning at the Funhouse alongside Mr. Martin Popoff.
Yes, morning
Good
there,
morning,
sir.
Martin.
Yes. How we doing this morning?
Cloudy, humid, like really humid,
Yeah.
rainy on and off. It's been an interesting couple of days. It's pretty wet
Yeah.
here in New York.
We're getting the heat wave too soon.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
not so much
yesterday.
hot here. It's just, man, you could literally take a knife and just like cut the humidity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's normal for New York around this time of year,
Yeah,
but it's been
sure.
really bad lately. So,
Yeah.
and they're talking about this cyclone effect. I don't know what the hell cyclone effect is. What is that? An amusement park ride? I don't know what the cyclone effect, but it has something to do with the weather. That we're in store for that today. Whatever the hell it is, I don't care. I'm sitting in here, so it doesn't really bother me. But anyway, this morning, everybody, in addition to our normal Friday shenanigans, it's also ranking the albums day. So today we're going to take a look at the catalog of new wave of British heavy metal semi-legends, Witchfynde. I guess you can call them legends, Martin. I don't know. What would you say?
I like your semi-legends. That's about right. Maybe even a little less than semi-legends.
Maybe even a little less. Yeah, it's like one of those bands that everybody has heard about, but you start to ask people. It's like, well, do you really know the albums? They're like, they were just one of those bands that came out around that time, and they had these really evil-looking album covers. And for me, I was kind of one of those guys too. And as you start to kind of dive into their music, that they're really not all that evil at all. Those album covers, I think, were a little bit suggestive and maybe not at all representative of the music for the most part. I can think of a lot of other bands that had more of like a kind of evil sound than these guys did, but some quality stuff here, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe arguably, and we'll get to this, I guess. For me, I don't know if any of these albums are absolute monster classics, but there's some really good material throughout a good chunk of the catalog, especially early on. So we've got 6 albums in total. We're going to start off with our number 6, work our way back to number 1. Yes, it's early, and I'll have Martin kick us off with his number 6.
All right. So yeah, just a little background. I mean, you're absolutely dead on about that. I mean, they even have something that came out recently. I think it was on Viper Records, The Lost Tapes of 1975, which we're not including in this because it's just a bunch of old demos, right? But you can hear that this band goes way back. I mean, Montallo started this thing in 73, 74, 75, and they were kind of like a bluesy, proggy, slightly heavy thing with this, like you say, with this evil name, right? And as you move forward, they almost become I always put them in the same class as Demon, right? With all the scary, album covers and lyrics and stuff, but kind of a poppiness. But we will get to that later. But let's start. So we're starting down at kind of the bottom of the pile, and number 6, The Witching Hour from 2001. You kind of have to put this here because this is a mix of a handful of originals. You've got The Other Side, In Your Dreams, You'll Never See It Coming. Pretty cool. One of the other side's kind of a mid-tempo, up-tempo, mid-tempo song. In Your Dreams is slower, but they're kind of creative. They've got this new singer at this point, Harry Harrison, who reminds me a little bit of this Yeri Tiura guy who did the Michael Schenker Tales of Rock and Roll. He's got this kind of lower, wild sort of voice. I take it he was a fan of the band or something, and he gets hired on for these later records. But yeah, so this is a mix of just a handful of originals and then redos of old songs. They aren't particularly performed all that great. They aren't particularly recorded all that great. So I don't know really what the point of this is. Sometimes with these things, it's because of publishing shenanigans where if you redo the song, you kind of make more money out of it again or whatever. I doubt that's really the case with Witchfynde, but we've seen a lot of those re-recording projects over the years by bigger bands. And there's I'd like to get the full explanation of that one day of how that works. But anyways, yeah. So in the number 6 position, just this hodgepodge kind of pointless album, The Witching Hour.
Yeah, it's my number 6 as well.
There's the cover.
Oh, there you go. Yep. Pretty cool album cover, right?
Yep.
Again, doesn't really represent the music on the inside too much, in my opinion. But it's amazing. 16 years, right? After the last, it was like a 16-year gap there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way, about it as you do. I think some of the stuff kind of works for me. But it's funny, like some of like the newer tracks, like You'll Never See It Coming, which I actually really enjoy. to me sounds like Blackfoot. It's got
Right.
these slide guitars and these big
Yeah.
ballsy, nasty riffs. And I'm like, doesn't sound like Witchfynde, but I almost wouldn't mind hearing a whole album of that, as weird as that sounds. But, in your dreams, I like that. It's kind of melodic, it's kind of heavy. Wake Up Screaming, you got, like I said, you got some remakes of old stuff, and none of it sounds as good as the originals. But I guess if you are a longtime fan of this band, it's kind of cool to hear them back once again, right? So, but you almost have to put this in this slot just because, right? But I think, there's enough here to kind of like. Is it classic Witchfynde? No, but as a curiosity piece, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Number 5, I went with the reunion full length new album, 2008's Play It to Death. Again, you've got Harry Harrison in there. I'm not crazy about his vocals. Like I say, it's a very strange sort of I don't know what would you call that, a baritone voice, but it's this lower voice. It's not like Steve Bridges from the past. But one thing I kind of like about this album is it reminds me a little bit of modern day Diamond Head, where you've got kind of innovative, cool writing, non-obvious, out of the box. You don't know quite what to call it. Like you say, it can be Blackfoot, Southern rock, poppiness, straight ahead heavy metal, not particularly sort of satanic or super dark or doomy. The title track, I've got a couple notes here: grinding mid-paced one, elements, again, kind of very reverby drums. There's one on here. It's Holy Ground. There's kind of like a drumming error in it. The bass drums like hitting at an odd spot, and it kind of throws you off. It's a little weird. But yeah, Life's a Killer. That's probably my favorite on here. Very weird one. A little bit of an Egypto stop start kind of thing to that one. Love Like Sin's got an odd beat to it. Shame the Devil's kind of a cool slow one. And then they do Paint It Black at the end. Pointless. I don't want to hear anybody covering Paint It Black ever again. But who needs a cover kind of thing on it? 10 tracks. But yeah, I like the idea that there's the personality of this band not fitting into a box anywhere on this new album. Again, not crazy about the performances or the production. This is something that's plagued them throughout their entire career. Yeah. Is the production situation. But yeah, there you go. 2008, Play It to Death.
Yeah, it's also my number 5. It's a solid record. I don't really think it sounds like Witchfynde. I echo your statements. It's like you don't really know what to call this, where to put it. I don't dislike it by any means. I don't love it either. Right? It's decent. Shame the Devil. I like that a lot. Love the title track. Love Like Sin. All those are pretty heavy, kind of moody. I agree. Life's a Killer is a good song. It's got some serious heft to it. It got a little bluesy slant to it, which I also think is kind of interesting. And Sticks and Stones, I like. Yeah, the cover. I mean, what is it? And I don't mean to sidetrack and derail this conversation, but what is it about all these bands that want to do cover songs of songs that have been covered by other bands a million times already?
Yeah.
And I mean, could you have? I could have thought of 5 other Rolling Stone songs to do a cover of, and not that one.
Yeah. Well, but also you see Paint It Black a fair bit. I think the Tea Party might have covered it. I think Anvil covered it. And I can think of 1 or 2 more, but people pick this one because it's called Paint It Black. It's considered one of the earliest doom or goth songs of all time, right? It is kind of doomy. So they're making a statement. It's like, oh, the evil Rolling Stones is my favorite Rolling Stones, and I grew up with the Rolling Stones. That's the other thing that bothers me, is covering things that are so old that your actual fans don't want to hear them at all, right?
Right. And how many of your actual fans, who may be younger, don't even know the original song?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I have an issue with bands just covering the same old all the time.
Yeah.
To me, it just doesn't make any sense. I like, there's a million other Rolling Stones tracks that they could have covered that done something good with that would sound a little bit, interesting, rather than, oh, here we go, another Paint It Black cover again.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, anyway, but yeah, not a terrible album, not a particularly very good album either. It's okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So my number 4, I went with the band's 3rd album, Cloak and Dagger. you know, when this album cover came out, it was like, whoa, Witchfynde back in a big way, right? You know, they're now on Expulsion Records, which is just a little label, and it just turns out to be kind of a one and done because the label goes broke. This is another thing that's common in Witchfynde's world, right? Is this idea of just not having good record label relations. But I mean, look at that band shot on the back. I mean, they look great, right? They look like kind of your evil new wave of British heavy metal band crossed with, actually they look like a Swedish band. Right.
They look like Candlemass. They look like Candlemass.
Exactly. You know, you got the swords in here and the cross, and you know, the guy with the blonde hair with the standard parted in the middle blonde hair thing going, you know, the whole Swedish thing. But new vocalist Luther Beltz, which is pretty interesting on this record. You know, he's got a major sort of he's one of the few guys who does kind of a King Diamond. Yeah. You know, he does that falsetto thing that sounds exactly like King Diamond, although his non-falsetto is not really all that much like King Diamond, but a little bit, right? I mean, it's pretty rare to see something like this. When we talked about the Starcastle thing, it's like here's somebody kind of copying one band, and they're the only people in the world to do it, sort of thing, right? But no, it's pretty cool. It's got that Crystal Gazing is a neat one, a melodic one. I'd Rather Go Wild was a little bit of a hit, kind of a cool mid-pace one. Somewhere to Hide, thumping, Cloak and Dagger, bassy, funky. Cry Wolf with the Peter and the Wolf music, kind of cheesy, right? But Living for Memories, mid-pace, kind of a meat and potato sort of sound on that. Rock and Roll's got kind of like a Celtic pop shuffle rock sort of thing. But this was a good, solid album with a really, really great, mean looking graphics. It's 1983, so now we're late in the new wave of British heavy metal. People are already arguing that it's the old new wave of British heavy metal at this point, or it's over, or whatever. I always consider the new wave of British heavy metal ending at the end of 1984. That's the way I always looked at it, right? But this is pretty late, and people aren't really paying attention, and you know, it just seems like the whole messaging of everything, it's heavier. This is, you know, this band gets split neatly with these 6 records into 2 pairs of or 3 pairs of 3 different lead vocalists, right? Yeah. As well. But yeah, it definitely, the image is a match to the music better on this one. So it's a good, solid album. Yeah, I'd rate it these days probably around a 7.5, maybe an 8.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, if you think new wave of British heavy metal, the heyday is pretty much done by 1984. If you're one of those bands that have been kind of participating in this from, you know, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, and you didn't cross over the threshold and move into like Maiden, Def Leppard, Saxon, Tigers, Diamond Head territory by this point in time, you weren't going to. Mm-hmm. And I think Witchfynde never quite crossed that line to break into more of the mainstream metal audience. Yeah. And if you didn't by 83, 84, it wasn't going to happen, basically, because how many bands that were still kind of doing the same thing just kind of faded into obscurity if they didn't have that one really big album by like 82 or 83 or so.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. And they're in indie at this point as well, too. Like totally indie.
Yeah, which doesn't help. Yep. All right, my number, what are we to? Number 4, right?
Yes.
Number 4. I'm going to go with their second album from 1980, Stage Fright.
Okay.
I like that album cover. It's kind of stark and sort of barren, but it's got this kind of, I don't know, ominous look to it, as much as there's nothing going on there. I don't know. I love the title track. Absolutely big, crushing riffs. Kind of doomy, really heavy. I love Steve Bridges' vocals on that particular song. I think overall the band sound a little bit more of the image they were portraying on this album than they do on the debut. The debut, you get it, it's got the goat, and it's like, you know, it's all this satanic imagery, and I don't get that at all with the music. This, I think the band is maybe moving a little bit more towards that, sort of. You know, I think it's like an identity thing with these guys. It's like they want to kind of follow along with what some of the other bands were doing, but at their core, they really weren't that kind of band. But what else? We got the hard rock and Doing the Right Thing, which is kind of moody, but kind of catchy. I like that. I like moody. I like catchy. They kind of go hand in hand together. Would Not Be Seen Dead in Heaven. to me, I'm gonna bring it up again, but it sounds like Southern rock meets like Pentagram. So it's got this kind of doomy Southern rock vibe thing going on. And his vocals at times remind me of what's his face from Pentagram, Bobby from Pentagram at times. He's got that kind of like nasally thing going on there, which I think maybe, and some of the riffs are kind of heavy on this album. Wake Up Screaming, really good drumming on that. I love the guitar riffs, really fast paced song, big deal. It's kind of commercial, a little punky. I hear a little punk edge in some of the tracks on some of these early albums. Moon Magic sounds like early Def Leppard, circa the first album or two. I like it. A lot of good riffs, a lot of hooks. In the Stars also has a kind of more of a accessible feel to it. I don't know. It's like Trick or Treat, another really monstrous song on here. I think this is the band moving into it's still heavy. It's got a little bit more of that evil vibe in spots, but it has other elements that I think, make me wonder, could this have been that album that did for them what like High and Dry did for Def Leppard? But again, the production's not great. They didn't hook up with that great label or the great producer or anything like that. But I think there's stuff on here that could have done for them what kind of Def Leppard was moving towards to make them a little bit more accessible. But there's a weird mix of styles on this album, which again doesn't really work in their favor. But I like it. I think it's a really strong album in their catalog, and it's number 4, but it's still really good, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As they say on Sea of Tranquility, more on that later.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. My next one, I'm actually, this was really tough doing this, but I'm actually going to go with the debut now in the middle of the pack, number 3. So give them hell. I've reconsidered this album so many times over the years. This is my original copy. I mean, look at that band shot, right? Yep. This was really spooky and scary. This is February 1980. So this is super early in the new wave of British heavy metal. The magic of this band more than anything was the 1979 single of Give 'Em Hell with Getting Heavy on the Other Side. I mean, that scared the heck out of us as kids. That and the early Angel Witch, singles, and then the 12-inch all before the album, I believe. So Angel Witch and Witchfynde, this was like, whoa, something is really happening here. So when this came out, it was a must buy. But it's not really that particularly heavy. It does have the same sort of issues as Stage Fright does. You think of this album, like Ready to Roll is an awesome kind of heavy one on here. Divine Victim, kind of slow Celtic bit of a feel. Leaving Nadir is like a mellow, like Rush doing mellow off of Caress of Steel kind of thing. Getting Heavy is cool. That's one of their like Celtic groovy poppy sort of things. But the title track is an absolute classic. I would rate it my 3rd favorite Witchfynde song, and more on that later. Pay Now, Love Later, kind of a crappy indie fast new wave of British heavy metal thing. I mean, they're just not doing a great job at, for a band that's been around since 75, they probably should have been a little better than this already, recording wise and everything. You've got that, I don't know why this is creepy looking, but the creepy looking Rondelet label, right? Although the other side, I mean, look at the other side, right? Can I get that not to glow? I guess I can't really. Bring it back here. So yeah, this was a really, like I say, for coming out February 1980, it was pretty important, but it's kind of uncooked, like the first couple of Samson albums before you get to Shock Tactics or the first Saxon album, right, which is also 79. So all this 79 stuff, except for Ian Gillan, of course, has this problem of just being kind of like whatever. But yeah, I mean, the guitarist has one name, Montallo, Steve Bridges, Andrew Colton, Grass Scoresby. We used to make fun of that name, right? Like, whoa, pretty crazy, right? Only 3 songs on side 2. But yeah, I don't know, just kind of patchy. My last 3 are all kind of mixed together, and I like them and don't like them all for various reasons. So.
Yeah, it's hard to rank this catalog because I think all these, like I said at the top of the hour, I don't think any of these albums is an outright classic, but there is some really good material splattered amongst all of them. So hard for me to rank too. It's just like any of them could switch at any time. because they're each driven by a handful of really, really strong tracks that I like a lot. And then some of the others is like, okay. So yeah. And, how about that album cover? Because of course, that we're talking about a time where, Venom is coming out, and, quite frankly, those Venom albums are kind of scary, right? And then you listen,
and it's late though. I looked that up. Venom's first album is late 1981. So it's like, these guys are way ahead of the thing. But Angel Witch with the Baphomet as well on everything, on the single, on the 12-inch, on, I think it's the back of the first album. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So it just, to me, the album cover, it just doesn't the music doesn't back it up. Yeah. Whether than, the way they look on the back of the cover, it's just like, this should be evil, grimy, just crushing stuff. And anyway, we'll get to it. I'll get to more of that. Let's see. Where are we? Number 3, right? I'm going to go with Lords of Sin. Again, pretty evil looking album cover there. Right. This is their 1984 fourth album. Here they're on to Mausoleum Records. So for those of you who are around collecting heavy metal back in the early mid 80s, will remember Mausoleum Records. A lot of cool stuff appeared on that label. And, this proved to be the one and only album from Witchfynde on Mausoleum Records, because shortly after they joined the roster, Mausoleum goes kaput. Similar theme we're seeing from this band. It's like they just, that big break just never happened. Pretty melodic album, actually. Stab in the Back. I think they're showing their maturity as songwriters on here, which is a good thing. This is a fairly accessible melodic metal hard rock album. Stab in the Back, really kick-ass song. Heartbeat, another good moody track. I like these guys almost kind of move into doom territory from time to time. Scarlet Lady, good hard rocker. Wall of Mirrors has this really interesting kind of evil imagery going on. Wall of Death, to me, sounds like really early Judas Priest, like really early, like first 2-3 albums. Conspiracy is a good track as well. Really solid record, I think. But again, in kind of going with the theme here, all of these albums really sound different from each other, and they're mixed with a lot of different styles, which almost makes it hard to kind of penetrate some of these albums, because each track they're going in a different direction, which for sometimes is a really good thing. But I like it. It's a good record. I think they've matured a lot as a band and as songwriters here.
Yeah. Okay. And my number 2 is also Lords of Sin. And you look at that album cover and he's doing the King Diamond thing again, right? Yeah. So definitely there's a big King Diamond feel to Luther Belts, right? What a great name, Luther Belts.
I know, right? And look at that picture right there.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And again, I really feel that this one and Cloak and Dagger are strong, and they're almost to the point where Demon, you go from Night of the Demon to The Unexpected Guest, and this almost feels like Cloak and Dagger and Lords of Sin feel like the third and fourth Demon albums that we would have wanted, instead of them going kind of proggy and still not recording very well, right? Yeah. And Lords of Sin, I think Pete Sergi's out of the band at this point, replaced by Ed Wolf, but that's a minor thing. I mean, the main thing is Luther Belts. He's kind of the personality of the band at this point. And later on they have some drama where there's actually 2 Witchfyndes going at the same time, but they seem to have patched it up. I think the quote unquote current lineup of the band is actually Luther back with these guys, right? Which is kind of interesting. But I agree, Conspiracy was a big song off of this, and so was Stab in the Back. Lords of Sin is this creepy melodic kind of, and that's the thing, when this sort of evil stuff is combined with the melodic stuff, it almost makes it more creepy. It's that demon thing all over again, right? You open that gatefold, Unexpected Guest, and the old man shots there, right? It's really spooky, right? But yeah, Hall of Mirrors, kind of like a balls to the wall feel to that one. Conspiracy is almost like stadium rock, slow. I mean, people have complained about the recordings of both Cloak and Dagger and Lords of Sin, but I don't think either of them are recorded all that badly. I think they're okay. It's not anything that is distracting. Heartbeat's almost like a hair metal poppy anthem thing, but dark again. I just think it's a good, solid album. But again, by 1984, it's like you're just caught in this nether zone. It almost feels like they are now part of the very beginning of the new wave of Swedish heavy metal. in a way. It almost feels like they're one of these non-English northern kind of bands who's just kind of getting their feet wet, so to speak, in this metal thing, and just being really confused with direction all over the place. And like you say, I mean, you look at that album cover, and it's spooky as all get out, right?
Oh yeah.
So, but just a solid middle of the road heavy album, and more or less well put together all throughout. And you can tell that their songwriting ability is a little higher than, frankly, the performance ability and the recording ability. They've got good songs. They would have needed that big producer to come in and a big record label to rein them in, who honestly might have even changed their name, right? And changed the album graphics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So there you go. Number 2.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, with a name like Witchfynde, how far are you really going to go? We talked about that on another show recently with Satan, how far, with a name like that, how far are you going to go? Yeah. Even like, Angel Witch, great band, were they really going to get to that next level with that name? Demon. I mean, it's cool for metal fans, right? I mean, we all thought these names were cool, and we don't care, right? The more evil, the better. But the masses and the record labels and, marketing firms and whatnot, maybe not. Yeah. Cloak and Dagger is number 2 for me. Okay. Again, the album cover, man, oh man. If that isn't like evil new wave of British heavy metal circa 1983, I don't know what is. You got Luther Belts taking over on vocals, like Martin mentioned. You instantly hear that King Diamond thing. I think when he's not doing the falsetto, he's got like this gruffer mid-range, which is fairly different than King. But man, when he goes shrieking, you're just like, whoa, wait a second, where have I heard that before? Some good tracks on here. Crystal Gazing, pretty heavy. I like the atmosphere on that as well. Living from Memories is a good hard rocker. Rock and Roll is a lot of fun. Good anthem. I mean, that to me is a song that could have been something for this band, I think. But, I'd Rather Go Wild is good. Somewhere to Hide. Cry Wolf is another like kind of total new wave of British heavy metal classic, or should have been. Stay Away, the title track is great. Devil's Playground. I like this album a lot. I think it's pretty solid. I could, if you ask me tomorrow, this could be my number 1. My number 1, I almost picked out of kind of like, well, it should be their number 1 in principle. Whether it deserves to be or not, I don't know, but we'll get there in a second.
Okay. All right. So my number 1, it's a real love it or hate it discussion I'm going to have here. But my number 1 is Stage Fright. So there's my original. I don't know if you can see it, but it came with kind of the faux leather, like a little bit like the Motorhead No Remorse, or what else is like this, with the textured cover. Yep. Great cover, really cool cover. Even the back cover is cool. Look at that, right in the middle of the back cover. All it says is, what is it?
Spotlight Stage Fright. Yep.
Right in the middle, and even the way the stuff at the bottom is all kind of kerned out and weird. So this was a really cool looking package. But you get clues on the inside of what they're like, because there they are, not looking very satanic and all kind of smiling away, their little sports jackets and whatnot, right? So, So yeah, it's weird directions, but this is one of those records. I don't know, Pete, if you have records that almost like get hauled up into the you really like them zone simply because of 1 or 2 tracks. They just like get
all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
Get hauled kicking and screaming into I like this album, and then you go back and play, and it's like I don't like a lot of this album, but it's my favorite because of, on this one, Stage Fright and Wake Up Screaming, which are my 2 favorite Witchfynde songs, absolutely, and then Give 'Em Hell, because the atmosphere on both of those, and like you say, the drumming, weird drumming. One of them's slow, one of them's fast, but they've just got this weird, wild energy and power surging going on both of them. And Steve Bridges is amazing on them. So this is a new bassist from the first album. This is when Pete Sergi joins the band. Doing the right thing again. It always bothered me, but there's a completely botched drum fill on that as well, which just so you go, wow, what just happened there, kind of thing, right? But yeah, would not be seen dead in heaven. That always reminded me of Ian Gillan, No Laughing in Heaven, right? It's this little poppy happy song saying, don't send me to heaven, right? It's just so weird, right? And almost uneasy and strange, right? But here they are doing this, and you're going like, what is this lyric doing on top of this, eh? But even this lyric, I mean, it is put in a humorous manner, just like Gillan's song, right? But Big Deal is cool. Like, that's the one you mentioned as punky. I can totally hear that. It's kind of like a new wave little post-punk, kind of a fun little ditty and pretty decent tune. Moon Magic is a really cool one on here. That's where that kind of moody, mystical, doomy melody, but it's still a happy, accessible melody. I think you said, even Def Leppard-ish, right?
Yeah.
But that's a really cool song in here that fits the whole theme of the album properly, because it does have that, that astrology kind of lyric to it. Trick or Treat is kind of like a slow thumping bluesy one, but it kind of fits as well. But again, it's literally one of those albums where and not well recorded. Again, on Rondelet, it's their second for last on Rondelet, and then they break with them because the money's not working out, and it's not working out for anybody. But it's definitely, they're not happy with the whole situation. But yeah, talk about a quality disconnect from that album cover, including the textured feel of it and everything, and that back cover, to what's enclosed. And it really is so much like the first album in that respect. So yeah. There you go. My number one, despite everything.
Yeah, it's interesting how we can rank albums that we readily admit aren't that consistent really high because of just a couple of songs. I mean, I do it all the time. It's like, well, I'll be like, well, this album top to bottom is excellent. Every song, great quality. This album, it's got 3 songs I love better than anything on that album. The rest of the album is not that good, but you know what? I'm going to rank this one higher. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how that happens. Yeah. And I guess in a way, I'm kind of doing it with this here. So Give 'Em Hell is my number one, the debut. 35 minutes. It's just as long as it needs to be, I think. Fast-paced hard rock and metal. I'd argue there's more hard rock on here than metal, but not nearly as heavy or evil as the cover depicts, but it's okay. Ready to roll, good fast-paced opener that totally fits into this whole new wave of British heavy metal thing. We've heard things like this before. The bass and the drums are way out front. Love it. The Divine Victim kind of sounds like this blues metal thing going on there. I like the guitars on that. Leaving the Deer. I love the atmosphere on that. That's just, this band does that moody atmospheric thing really, really nicely, which I like. What else? Getting Heavy, good kind of nasty guitar licks. Steve Bridges, screaming up a storm on that one. Guy's got an interesting voice.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't say he's a great singer, but his voice kind of really fits this music, this kind of the lo-fi-ness of this band. Title track reminds me of like Speedier Pentagram. I hear little bits of early Pentagram on a lot of this stuff. Unto the Ages of the Ages is kind of like their Dazed and Confused, right? It's probably 3 to 4 minutes too long. There's way too much jamming and experimentation going on here, but I really like some of the parts of this song. And then Pay Now, Love Later is the album closer. And I don't know, I like this album. There's a certain really weird charm to this, like the band in their infancy, kind of, even though they'd already been around for a number of years before here. And I don't know, there's just a handful of tracks on here that really do it for me. And I would say this album probably is better start to finish easily, but I don't know, there's just something about this album that I really dig. So today anyway. So
yeah, it's funny. I mean, records 3 and 4 are the ones where objectively someone would play those, who doesn't know, and say, those are pretty good. But the first 2 are just almost like too weird and lo-fi and old sounding and like confused. And then the later stuff's just like trying to relive your glory, I guess, a little. So it's fits nicely into 3 different pairs so far. Right?
So far,
we'll see what happens. Yeah. We'll see if we get a record with Luther,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Because that last one came out, how long ago was that? That was
2008, I think it was. Yeah, so now 13 years.
Jeez, it's a long time.
Yeah.
So for those watching who, maybe are having a hard time tracking these down, there's a nice box which has the first 3 albums, and the others you can all get. But this is a cool little collection. They all come in these little mini LP things, and you get a nice little booklet with the history of the band. Pretty cool. Like if you're new to Witchfynde, it's probably a good place to start. But interesting band. You listen to them and you're like, all right, all you have to do is hear a couple notes and you're like, yeah, that's early 80s new wave of British heavy metal if you knew nothing about them whatsoever. And I think another cool curiosity act from this scene, with a lot of those kind of second and third tier bands that are fun to talk about and fun to re-listen to, but unfortunately never really made it to the big leagues, so to speak, right? So there you have it, everybody. Ranking the albums of Witchfynde. If you are a fan, rank them as you like them in the comments below. If you've never listened to them, well, now's your time. Go out, and people are going to ask, well, what's the best place to start? Because Pete and Martin's rankings were completely different, and that is a cool thing, right? I don't know. I would say you really can't go wrong with those first 4 albums. Any of them could be their best at any given day. So, just give them a try there. The albums aren't long. So it's not like if you were to listen to the first 4 records, you'd be spending half a day, right? So block out 2 hours of time and go investigate them, see what you think, and come back and report back. So anyway, Martin, what's going on with the podcast, with the Contrarians books? What's happening on your end?
Oh boy. Well, actually a cool thing happened overnight with the Contrarians. Marco went and did a mammoth. I think there were 9 guys on there and super smart Patreon subscribers. They did a whole thing about Kiss the Elder. Which it goes over an hour and they're just talking about the Elder, and these are smart guys. So that's if you anything and everything you want to know about the Elder should be in that podcast. Other than that, just working on the books, martinpopoff.com. I've got news again overnight that my shipment is coming. That'll have the Yes visual biography and the Nazareth visual biography in it, and a few other things that I ran out of. And we've been talking about the new Iron Maiden song recently. So I reminded people on my Facebook, I do have the first 2 Iron Maiden books as well in print. The third one is out of print, Empire of the Clouds, but I have Holy Smoke and I have Where Eagles Dare. There you go.
Cool. That new Maiden song they just released, pretty cracking, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Better than the first one.
I like the first one too, but
everybody's complaining though still about Kevin Shirley and the production and the mix, 2 different things, but whatever. I mean, and on this one, it sounds like the drums seem almost too loud in this one. So yeah,
a lot of people commenting that Bruce's vocals sound different.
Yeah, and too quiet. I've heard as well, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's just, it seems like the debate when people complain about Maiden, it's sameness over and over again. But now recently on these last 2, there's been a lot of flood of complaints about the production and the mix.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Maiden is just one of those bands that everybody dissects every little thing they do.
Yeah.
It's like, it's interesting because you got that new Maiden album coming out and the new Dream Theater album coming out. And those are the 2 bands that is absolutely the case with. Their fans will dissect every little thing they do to death and debate it. And it's just like, wow. It's like, I think the days of just, getting the new record and listening to it and either like it or not, that's out the window, right? It's like, the production, the vocals, the snare drum, that guitar lick, this, that, it's like, man. So, but that's the world we live in now, I guess. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned. Coming up on Sunday, we've got album homework assignment this week. We've got Armando Venditti going up against Eric Porter. That is the pairing we've got. They've each given each other their assignments, and they're going to talk about it on Sunday. So stay tuned for that. We've got Monday, Hudson Valley Squares. Tuesdays in the Prague seat will be postponed for next week. It's my wife's birthday, so I'm going to spend the evening with my wife. So got to do that, right? And Wednesday, we've got What's Hot with Sea Tranquility Day with all sorts of new album reviews. Thursday, Monsters Den. Chris Allen and I will be ranking our 5 favorite Dario Argento horror films. So that's coming up Thursday. And then, wouldn't you know it, Friday morning, Mr. Popoff will be back here with me once again. So stay tuned for all this and more coming up on the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click on that notification bell. All channel donations can be made through our Ko-Fi link, which is in the video description below, as well as a link to our merch page where you can get cool shirts like this one or the one that Martin is wearing and a lot more great stuff. And of course, the link to seatranquility.org, our webzine that has now been on the internet for 20 years this year. It is our 20th anniversary. So thanks for watching, everybody. For Martin Popoff, I'm Pete Pardo. Have a good one and a good weekend, everybody. Take care.